Well, in this section we're going to deal with the paper Pentecost at Sinai. It's paper number 115, and the work follows on from the paper on the Exodus involving both Moses and the gods of Egypt, and you can see that in the paper 105, and also Moses and the Exodus, which is included in the paper of the Passover 98. This deals with exactly who gave the law at Sinai and how. The sequence of the move to Sinai is explained in terms of the meaning of the stops, and a better understanding emerges. The power of the host as given from God is also examined in relation to the giving of the law and the events at Sinai. All right, Wade.
Thanks, Martin. It's very important in understanding who gave the law at Sinai to Moses. Now, John 1:18 is quite clear. No man's seen God ever. The being that was in the bosom of the Father spoke or declared. Now, he's the one that declared the law, and that being was Christ. Christ was the angel of the presence at Sinai. We know that he was with Israel in the wilderness because of 1 Corinthians 10 verses 1 to 4 says that he was there and that rock was Christ. So you can't get away from it. Paul says that. And Stephen, when Christ was killed, after Christ was killed, Stephen was then arrested by these people, and he told them that they had just killed the angel of the presence from Acts 7:30 to 53. Stephen said, the angel of the presence declared the law to Moses, and that he gave the structure of the law, and that being they had just killed. He was the God of Israel, the subordinate God of Psalm 45 verses 6 and 7, and that text in Psalm 45 is repeated in Hebrews chapter 1 verses 8 to 9, and that specifically states that being is Christ. Now, he selected Moses. He was given Israel as his inheritance, and he selected Moses and developed him in order to take Israel out of Egypt. And Moses was sent into Midian for 40 years, and Moses was trained in Midian to simply deal with the problem and get over the weaknesses of his Egyptian understanding and develop his understanding under Jethro, priest of Midian, whose name was Hobab. That man, helped to develop him in the faith, and he understood and wrote the book of Job while he was in Midian, and that structure of Job is the first book of the Bible written. There, Moses learnt the basis of the history of his people and the structure of what was required of him. Christ then took him, that is, ordered him to go back to Egypt and pick up his brother Aaron, and then deal with Pharaoh and bring Israel out of Egypt. it's important to understand that Christ was with them all the time. Christ was teaching Moses and Aaron, giving them the law, and all of the structure of the law is based and emanates from the nature of God. The law cannot be removed. It cannot be done away because it emanates from the nature of God and regulates the entire creation. So we are required to understand and follow the laws of God. And that was given to us by Christ. Now, modern Christianity tries to convince you that it wasn't Christ that gave the law to Moses. The reason they do that is so that they can do away with the law. So they can tell you that the law was only related to the Old Testament and that Christ did away with it. Now, why would Christ give the law under the instructions from God to Moses, kill people for not keeping the law, and then do away with it when he became the Messiah?
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And that didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. And Christ will return very soon and then reinstitute the laws of God. And if you don't keep them, you will not go into the millennium and you will not live. It's that simple. Now, this Pentecost at Sinai is critical to your understanding of the faith. And it's most important that you realize that it was Christ at Sinai that gave the law to Moses. It was Christ that was with Israel 40 years in the wilderness, and it was Christ that took Israel into the promised land. It was Christ that appeared to Joshua at Jericho and participated in the fall of Jericho miraculously. And then he took Israel into the promised land, gave them their inheritance, and then supervised their inheritance with them until he became a human being, in which case then Gabriel and other angels took over his responsibilities in that regard, and then he was resurrected and went to the throne room of God and sat on the right hand of God as the high priest of Melchizedek under Psalm 110. It's most important we understand the function of Christ and what he did. Hebrews chapter 8 tells us that Messiah is the high priest of Melchizedek. He is the king and the priest of the heavenly host as well as the human creation. It is most important, and understanding that it was Christ that gave the law to Moses at Sinai is critical to the faith.
And it's always been amazing to me, Wade, as you pointed out, people think the law's been done away and that there's no punishment for this. Anybody that's taken a cursory read of the Bible and the stories, not only in the Old Testament and New Testament, of the punishment that was issued out by the angel of the presence under God's authority of these people just to be simply killed because they didn't keep law.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen in the future. Most of these churches out there, people that are following any reign of biblical, even think there's going to be a rapture where they're going to be saved from that persecution, which there is no rapture.
In disobedience as well.
Or are sitting there saying, well, it doesn't apply to me. Yeah. Well, it does.
It does.
It's paper number 115, Pentecost at Sinai.